Hey, C's artists, how are you doing? The artist we're going to learn about today is Georgia O'Keeffe. And the supplies we need are crayons, a white piece of paper, watercolor paints, a watercolor brush, a container of water, and a paper towel. And since we're watercoloring, you'll also want to get some sort of a placemat to put underneath your paper. So you can use newspaper or even a cookie sheet works good. An old placemat that's like a vinyl, just whatever you can find that will help protect the table underneath. Hope you enjoy this short video about Georgia O'Keeffe, and then we'll get started on our art project. Georgia O'Keeffe lived from 1887 to 1986. She's an American artist who broke away from traditional painting to paint the way she wanted to paint. She is recognized as the mother of American modernism. I found I could say things with color and shapes that I couldn't say any other way, things I had no words for. Her inspiration came from the things she saw around her. When she lived in New York City, it was buildings. At Lake George, it was flowers and leaves. In New Mexico, it was the desert landscape and its raw beauty. Her canvases were large, and the subject of the painting took up the entire space. Notice how sometimes she is zoomed in so close to the flower that you can't even see its edges anymore. It has been reduced to purely colors and shapes. When you take a flower in your hand and really look at it, it's your world for the moment. I want to give that world to someone else. Most people in this city rush around so they have no time to look at a flower. I want them to see it whether they want to or not. She loved the variety of colors in the desert so much that she ended up moving to New Mexico later in her life. She collected skulls and bones she found in the desert. To her, they were not about death, but life. They were the flowers of the desert. She enjoyed the interesting shapes they made held up against the blue sky. She completed over 2,000 paintings during her life. The Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe is the first museum in the United States dedicated to a female artist. To get started, we need an object or picture of a flower, skull, or seashell. I'm going to demonstrate the flower and the shell, but you can choose whatever you want as long as it takes up the whole paper. Here's an example of a simple flower I painted. Notice how the petals go all the way to the edge and the flower is taking up the entire space. If we want to do a different type of flower like a rose, we just need to make sure that, like Georgia O'Keeffe, we focus on following these lines and shapes that we see. Grab any color crayon you want and start with the center of the flower. I'm following the lines of each petal. Are they curved, straight, bumpy? These lines are called contour lines. They define the edge of the shape. I'm not only looking at the lines of the edges of the petals, but also the lines that form between two petals. When we are done with the contour lines, we can color parts of the rose with crayons. We can choose to do either the lighter or darker areas or both. We will be using watercolor too, so don't color the entire flower with crayons. When we paint, the wax in the crayon pushes the watercolor away and we can still see the color from the crayon. This technique is called wax resist. So when we use white, it's especially fun because it really pops out in the painting. When you're done with this step, you can put away your crayons and get out your paints. We need the water to help wake up our paints and the paper towel to help control how much water we have on our brush. I'm going to twirl the brush around in my watercolor nice and gently and then lay that color down on the paper. One technique I can use is put water down with that color and let them flow together to create some light and dark areas. Another technique we can use is putting two colors next to each other on the paper and letting them mix and flow together on the paper. We can already see some of that white crayon starting to pop through the paint. Another fun technique is getting the paper wet first and then dropping the paint into that wet area and letting it just flow around. Remember to work quickly in order to blend colors together on the paper. The more water you have on your brush, the lighter it will be, and the less water you have, the darker it will be. To control the amount of water on your brush, remember to use your paper towel. The fun thing about watercolor is just letting the paint do its own thing. Georgia was just interested in colors, shapes, and lines, so you can either copy the colors exactly or make up your own. It helps to have some light and dark areas in your painting. So as it starts to dry, you can go back and add some darker areas to the flower. For the background, we need to make sure that we're not using the colors that we used in our flower. So I'm going to use a really soft blue to put in my background. You could use purple or green. You could even mix two colors like green and blue together, would be really pretty. I'm just using that technique of putting water down and then adding the color to it so that I get this nice soft light blue. All right, next I'm going to get out my seashell, and we're going to do the same thing. We'll follow the lines along the edge of the seashell. Grab any color you want, and I'm going to start with that curved line and then the three bumpy lines that go along the bottom. Same thing along the top. Those three bumpy lines, and they come down and connect. Now I'm going to do the lines that are in the middle of the seashell. Now I'm going to draw kind of that opening in the shell and also add the area where the shadow is. Once I have these contour lines done, then I can get out some different color crayons and add some details to the shell. I'm going to draw some curved lines to show that the shell is round and also has some texture to it. There's all these little dots all over my shell, and so I'm going to go ahead and add some dots too. Remember to press hard with your crayon so that that wax resist technique will work well. All right, let's paint. I'm going to use a gray, so to make that I need to put black in my tray and then keep adding water to it until it gets to the lightness that I want it. I'm going to take some other colors and add it to the gray to kind of make my seashell look a little bit colorful. You can try and copy the colors you see in your shell or skull if you're doing a skull, or you can just make up fun colors to put in your shell or skull. I'm trying to use these same techniques that we did in the flower, where I'm using more or less water, wet on wet, two colors together to blend, and then adding water to kind of blend things around. Once again, for our background, we need to pick a different color than what's in our shell. I'm going to have my seashell laying on the sand, so I'm going to be combining yellow and brown together on my paper. But you could do a bright purple, a fun green, or a combination of two other colors. It's your painting, so whatever you want it to look like. I can't wait to see what you've created. Remember to share your artwork with me either by filling out the form that's right here on Google Classroom, or you can tag me on Instagram at @C's_art, or you can send me an email, czart@gmail.com. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.